Hi, my name is Sarah Compton, and this is my leadership journey. I wanted to start out my presentation with a quote: "Leadership and learning are indispensable to one another." John F. Kennedy. I think that's a great quote to really demonstrate what my own leadership journey has been like and how the significance of learning and leadership go hand in hand. So, a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Dubuque, Iowa. And if you don't know where that is, it's about an hour and a half north and a little bit east of here. I'm the second of six kids, and I'm the first daughter. And so I helped my mom a whole lot when I was younger and essentially helped to raise my younger siblings. I was homeschooled from kindergarten through third grade and also in high school. And it was through that time that I really learned to love learning and learned how to learn well, which really helped me throughout life. In high school, I was involved in band and orchestra, and I was really very heavily involved in marching band. And that's where I learned a lot about group interaction and group building and the kind of roles that go into group building. As for group interaction, I learned a lot about the significance of everyone understanding and internalizing the common goal of either competing in a competition or performing for a halftime show at a football game. I also learned the significance of interdependence and understanding that individuals on a team who don't perform well or don't rely on other members of the team aren't going to be successful by themselves. Everyone needs to rely on each other in a team, particularly in marching band when everyone's moving around and playing together. That if you don't work well in the team, you're not going to succeed just by going off and doing your own thing. I also learned about the significance of ongoing communication and how important it is to learn and respond to one another, and the importance of sharing information. I also learned about group building and the role I typically took on myself, and that was usually the encourager and the standard setter. I was a section leader in band, and so I was often the one to encourage people to work to the best of their abilities, but also to pursue the same common goal, um, and thus set the standard for the group. In high school, one of the situations that really influenced my um, leadership journey and in my mind really kicked it off was I became a leader for the local youth group at my church and for middle schoolers. And I hadn't led in that role before, or really done much leading of groups at all. And so I learned from people I respected and just watched them and tried to copy what they did in order to become successful. It was also at that time that I helped to develop a peer leadership team. Uh, and now, when I look back, I understand that I was seeking out opportunities and helping to develop them when they hadn't previously existed. And I now see that that was kind of the start of me understanding that I do like to lead, and I am able to do it at least in some capacity. Another experience that influenced how I understand leadership and particularly communication was when I traveled to Haiti for two medical mission trips. I really understood the significance of barriers of communication, and language is obviously a very large barrier if you don't speak the same language. But I really began to understand the significance of not communicating well or not being able to communicate. And that bothered me so much after my first trip there that I decided I wanted to learn Creole so that the second time I went back, which was a couple years later, I could actually communicate with people. And I did. I learned the language and was able to communicate at a conversational level. And it was so rewarding to see that effort realized. When the last significant event that happened in high school that really influenced my leadership journey was when I started my own business. I call it Joyful Sound, and it was a flute performance business. I'd been playing for 12 years. I'm on the right hand side in this picture, and my two friends that joined me in this business are on the left. And we performed for business events, holiday parties, and for weddings. And those were my favorite events, were the weddings. Um, I used a lot of the research and skills that I already had to start up this business, but I was still fresh and I still didn't know a lot. And so I utilized my love for learning and the time that I had to research, and learn about customer preferences, learn about how to interact with potential clients. I learned about advertising specifically and learned how to um, communicate in all sorts of ways that I'd never done before. I chose to come to the University of Iowa, and I was so excited to come here. Uh, it was really, I knew I wanted to be here, and so this was the only school that I actually applied to. For the first week of classes, there was an intensive 1 credit hour class that in smaller groups, about 500 kids were split up into smaller groups studying different subjects. And then at the end of the week, uh, our instructor asked us to give a presentation to the larger group. And I usually don't volunteer for things like that, but I decided, well, this is a new chapter of my life and I can be who I want to be here and I can start new and get out of my comfort zone. And so I volunteered, and our group was the first to go to present to the 500 other people there. And it was a totally new and just so exciting experience for me that it influenced how I approach other classes now, and the comfort. I'm just so much more comfortable with presenting in my other classes. In some of those classes, oh, sorry. In some of those classes, particularly a class called Child Welfare Policy and Practice, I noticed that I was more of an emergent leader. I didn't necessarily volunteer for things, but I realized that I did want to step up when I realized that I had the skills. In another class, Nonprofit Organizational Effectiveness, I realized that I was a democratic leader. And when I was selected by my group mates to be the leader of our group, I tended to have this particular approach. And also, kind of as a side note, I wouldn't have taken this nonprofit management certificate or the classes in it without taking the certificate. And I'm so glad that I chose to in conjunction with my major. I'm totally passionate about learning, about advocacy, specifically in social justice issues, about social work, which is what I'm studying, and about trauma work and recovery specifically. I've learned that I'm an introvert and a peacemaker, that leadership is a process, and you don't always arrive when you think you do. That I appreciate diversity and the value of all kinds of different experiences and backgrounds. And I realized that I really identify with virtue ethics and the idea that a person who possesses high morals or very strong morals often makes wise ethical choices. My leadership and communication style is often democratic leadership, interpersonal oriented communication, and McGregor's theory why. So I'm very people oriented, sometimes to the point of not focusing as much on a task and focusing more on the people. But I very much value identifying and encouraging people's strengths. My followership style often depends on the situation. When I'm really passionate about my work or an organization, I tend to have an exemplary um, followership style, really excited about the work and appropriately challenging, but just really all about learning, but hoping and working for the growth of the organization. When I'm kind of neutral or I'm not so sure how I align with an organization or a task, I tend to have a conformist or passive followership style. Some of my limitations and my strengths include I'm a little bit familiar with powerless talk, and I tend to use disclaimers and hedges when I speak. But on the other hand, some of my strengths, particularly in the realm of transformational leadership, I'm good at using interactive language with images, metaphors, and models. In the future, I want to learn how to lead in everyday life. I want to pass on knowledge that I learn, and I want to continue to grow in that knowledge. And I'm really looking forward to and hoping to capitalize on all my experiences, not just the ones that I view as good, but to learn from the good and the, at first impression, bad experiences so that I can become a better and a more effective leader. Where I want to go, I want to get a master's of social work and hopefully attend leadership training through my career building. I would like to eventually become a team leader of social workers and use that position to um, teach and share knowledge, but also to share ideas and share values such as challenging traditions in an appropriate way in order to encourage better and more productive leadership and social work practice. Finally, I want to grow in servant leadership. I want to be a better visionary uh, as it relates to charismatic leadership. I tend to have a vision myself, but don't always know how to communicate it. And I also want to become more confident in leadership. And I think that comes through volunteering for opportunities and being intentional about pursuing leadership. And I plan to do that through the rest of my undergraduate career, but also hopefully through my graduate career and then during just my everyday life experiences. And I look forward to the rest of this journey.